All right, we're gonna start with a chant. I'm gonna say long live, and you say international solidarity. Long live
International solidarity!
Long live
International solidarity!
We all remember that Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. was an internationalist, and I am Reverend Jeanelle N Ablola from the National Ecumenical-Interfaith Forum for Filipino Concerns, or NEFFCON. I'm honored to have been invited up here to speak on Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King's day, to be one of the many voices determined to reclaim his radical legacy. All of us are here refusing to allow empire to co-opt or soften the blow his ministry and activism made on the status quo. We are here refusing to whitewash his militant stance against systemic oppression. In his speech, A Time to Break Silence, his speech where he makes the connections between the war in Vietnam and the civil rights movement, he names the connections between the triple evils of racism, militarism, and materialism. NEFFCON has a role in work and ministry in standing up against these three evils through our solidarity with the people of the Philippines. We work with not only religious groups, but political groups and people's organizations in the Philippines and in the U.S. to educate, provide relief, advocate legislative bodies, and provide public witness to address issues of human rights, economic justice, and the peace process in the Philippines. It sounds innocent enough, yet church people, along with many who stand up against the imperialist policies of the U.S. Duterte regime, are considered a threat. And currently there are three wars being waged against the people of the Philippines: the war on drugs, or the war against the poor; the war on terror, or the war against the Muslim population; and his counterinsurgency war, Oakland Kapayapaan, or the war against those who critique their regime. These three wars are attempts to silence critics and perceived enemies, and the U.S. via Trump commended Duterte's efforts and committed to contributing more U.S. military resources and U.S. funding to these wars. The U.S., along with leaders like Duterte, are sowing the seeds for tyranny and fascism worldwide, and not just here, but worldwide. These three wars are not unfamiliar to us in the U.S. History has shown that empires behave similarly, and now we have the U.S. empire panicking. They're trying insidious and desperate moves to suppress us. Those who benefit most from imperialism are joining together in their desperation to figure out how to silence us and how to keep their sins hidden so that they don't have to repent and be met with our justice. They're exchanging tactics, knowledge, resources, and technology, and this might all sound dire, and sometimes we might get into hopelessness, but it's also a sign of how powerful the people are. We have become a source of fear for them. Our unity and solidarity have struck panic into their stone-cold hearts, and they can no longer drown out the echoes of our shouts of justice, resistance, and our victories over their attempts to repress us. Over their attempts to keep us ignorant, to keep us complacent, to keep us silent. Our movements are growing, and our abilities to connect our struggles are bearing fruit in concrete ways and in each person here. We have all shown up to a legacy that has been handed to us from those who have gone before us and those who continue to resist. The legacy and current reality of the longest running people's resistance in Asia, the people's movement in the Philippines. From Martin Luther King Jr., we have inherited a legacy. As much as folks want to sugarcoat it according to their comfort, this isn't merely a sentimental legacy or a legacy in remembrance only. This is a legacy that calls us to and necessitates that we take action now. Get organized, join an organization if you aren't already involved. We have to build ecumenically across cultures, across faiths. We have to make connections no matter what our religious background, faith tradition, or spirituality, and unify on the principle of life. Martin Luther King Jr. himself called himself a citizen of the world, and his loyalty was with humankind as a whole and not bound by borders. So must our political analysis and education, our alertness and awareness, our solidarity and our actions be borderless and boundless. We must shape our actions into an all-embracing and unconditional love for all, but especially for the oppressed and the toiling masses of society. We must continue to build a united front in which we can support, protect, and defend one another. According to Martin Luther King, we must revolutionize our values from being thing-oriented to people-oriented and go out into a sometimes hostile world, declaring eternal hostility to poverty, racism, and militarism. Long live international solidarity!
Long live international solidarity! Long live international solidarity!
Amen.